Yeah, so thank you so much for coming to the show. Just to get started, can you actually introduce Lendable to our audience? What the platforms, when did you launch, and yeah, what problems are you actually solving for investors?
Marco, thank you so much for having me today. I'll start with saying that Lendable is a European alternative investment platform, which was basically launched in 2025. We're quite new on the market, but still good. Its purpose is to connect investors directly with loan originators by, regulated non-financial institutions operating within the Virtula group. Basically, what we observed over the years is that many investors are not necessarily chasing the highest yields. They rather chase predictable returns with clear visibility. And in many of those cases, platforms nowadays grow fast, diversify aggressively, and transparency suffers from time to time. So Lendyball was actually designed to have a different philosophy, and we thought about having fewer originators, full disclosure, and a simple structure that investors can actually understand. We of course don't charge fees to investors, and basically we also don't try to hide complexity behind some
Mm-hmm.
fancy dashboard. Our main role is to facilitate the access to consumer loans, which we will provide documentation, we will allow investors to make informed decisions, and of course all of this in market that still offer some attractive margins, yields, so that they are content with what we provide.
Okay, that's a solid introduction. Thank you for that. So now tell us a bit about you. Like, what's your background? Like, what um, really led you to join Lendable, and also what's your role there?
Well, Marco, I came from a business development and entrepreneurial background. I have extensive experience mainly in fintech, lending, and investment related projects. Of course, over the years, I've been involved in startups. I did early stages to exits, both as like a small angel investor. So I've been through all this kind of stuff, and I've worked both on the operational side of things and both on the strategic side of things. So
Mm-hmm.
um, most important part to mention here is that I also was a co-founder of the Moldovan loan originator that we have on Lendable. So that means that for me is I've seen the business from the inside, whether it's underwriting, collections, regulatory audits, and liquidity management. So I didn't just look into. I'm not only familiar with the investor side. That's a plus. And when the Lendable project started, the decision was obvious and super straightforward. I already know the team, the risk
Yeah.
framework, the discipline, the operational discipline that we have behind it, and of course, I took the role today of doing business development, of operations, and one of the most important parts is that I took over the communication with the investor community,
Mm-hmm.
which I believe is one of the most underappreciated elements in P2P. And I am super content with our users and our investors. They are super smart guys and they give us a lot of questions. And I'm always pleased to engage with them, basically.
Yeah, yeah, I can definitely confirm that community is very important in the field more and more, I would say. So amazing that you have this group and directly talk to investors, right? You mentioned naturally loan originators, right, in your introduction. So let's go to that if that's okay with you. So Lendable operates in Romania and Moldova. That's two markets that are not so familiar, right, in the space. So I don't think I wrote a lot about it, and there were so many platforms in those markets. So why are those two markets attractive for P2P lending?
Uh, Marco, you're right with the fact that I would say Romania is a little bit, better known in the European market for lending. Moldova is actually a little bit underestimated on that. Of course, Moldova, my home country, often underestimated, but it has proven to be a very solid non-banking lending market. Um, the interesting fact, and one of the things that I actually discussed in the Austrian Chamber of Commerce, is that our loan originator from Moldova, Victoria Credit, was actually the first lender to issue an online consumer loan in Moldova around 2016, which was something really big for that. And actually, we did that without like a regulator, without without a necessary framework from the regulator. We did that on our own, and it worked. Of course, shortly after that, major multinational groups such as, I don't know, Aventus and Eleving and UTE Group entered the market and scaled significantly. For example, if we're talking about groups in Moldova, so that our audience has an understanding of why Moldova is a good market. For example, UTE Group Moldova was one of the first markets they went in, and they later grew a portfolio of around 70 million euros there. So that alone basically says a lot about the market's potential. The demand for consumer credit is real in Moldova, stable, and is well regulated. Um, on the other side, Romania is also a very strong market. Um, the only thing right now is, while our Romanian operations are currently paused, so we had a strategic restructuring. And the intention is basically now to re-enter Romania with an improved setup once conditions align. Both markets combine attractive yields, if we're talking Moldova and Romania, but they still have strict consumer protection rules, which is actually a very good combination, which investors can take serious. You know,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
very important for us.
Okay, yeah. So you work with two loan originators, right? So one is paused at the moment, as you mentioned. But can you still tell me, like, how do they differ, and what's the difference between those two once you unpause this Romanian side, right? And what the diversification that it offers to investors?
So, you see, currently all active investments basically on Lendable are baked, as I said, by Victoria Credit in Moldova. Uh, Previously, we also operated Virtula Finance IFN in Romania. It was a couple of days ago that actually, after around 2 years of activity on that market, Virtula Group, which is the main group, made the strategic decision to sell the Romanian subsidiary to Sun Finance Group. And Sun Finance Group is a multinational lender with more than 4 billion in loans issued globally. For us, and this message is important for our investors, is that this transaction was important for two reasons. First of all, it straightened the group financially, and second, it validated the business by attracting a highly established international buyer. For investors, we think that this is a very clear confidence signal that a player like Sun Finance Group, saw potential and was able to verify and see that we were managing our operations in a very consumer-friendly way, transparent way, and our name was good on the Romanian market. Until Romanian operations are relaunched, basically, now Lendable will be fully focused on scaling Moldova and from one side and improving the platform infrastructure from the other side, which of course we believe it's the right priority at this certain stage.
Okay, yeah, right. That's very very clear. So maybe let's focus on Victoria Credit, right? So you said it's been operating since 2012. So I know from experience that loan originators are very important in the platform, right? Can you share a bit about the portfolio performance, defaults also, since it has been started?
Yeah, sure, Marco. I'll say a couple of words about Victoria Credit. So, the company has been active since 2012. So we're now into our 14th year of operations and experience. We have so the company basically we have issued over 10 million euros in loans over time. And over this period, the portfolio has gone through multiple economic crises and cycles, which we consider is far more relevant than the short-term performance status. Meaning that we've been through, conflicts with our neighbors, and big economical crisis, and we still managed to like keep operations and keep afloat, which I personally consider and the group considers that's a big example or a big thing for the investors to kind of like look into us as a serious company that was able to kind of like have a crisis-proof operation system. And default levels for us are always within acceptable and controlled ranges. Of course, we understand, that all non-performing loans are covered by provisions calculated within using conservative and stress case assumptions. For us, it's very important that we try to assume the worst case scenario all the time when building provisions, and not the optimistic one, so that we are on the safer side of things. And I would say one more thing here, that the key point for investors is longevity. A loan originator that survives and adapts over more than a decade probably demonstrates operational discipline, and that's something numbers alone don't always show.
Yeah, completely agree. Like in all my reviews of platforms and when I tell to people what to look for, I said, even if a platform is quite new, right, like yours, always look at the loan originators, and if they are there for a long time, then it's always already a good point, right? So let's talk a bit more about the platform itself now, after loan originators. So you offer a buyback mechanism. Many people know what it is, but maybe some people that are watching this don't. So can you just explain how does it work and how do you actually implement it on your platform?
Yeah, sure, Marco. So I would say, I would put it in this way. If a loan is delayed by more than 60 days, the loan originator, in our case, repurchases the receivable, returning both principal and accrued interests to the investor. From a structural perspective, and this is very important. From a structural perspective, there are three layers involved. First, the investor purchases the receivable from Virtula Group. Second, Virtula Group backs the receivable with its own assets. Third, the underlying consumer loan is issued and backed by Victoria Credit and its balance sheet. And here it's important to be very clear. This is also not an insurance product. It is more of like a contractual obligation supported by operating assets and cash flow. Because we believe that clarity here is far more important than, the simple marketing language.
Yeah, I completely agree. And so I wanted to go to another point. So we talk about yields, we talk about the buyback, also loan originators. There's another thing that people really care about, and more actually, is transparency. So people want transparent platforms. It's really became a concern for people because there are some platforms in the past that have not been that transparent and like were hiding something, right? So what are you actually doing to be transparent and really build this trust with investors?
Yeah, thank you. That's a very, very good question. We are getting this question a lot on our groups. We have a lot of investors that are active, and I really enjoy the fact that our community is super active nowadays. And one of the biggest questions that they have actually is about transparency. I always tend to say that transparency is not something you declare, but it's something you practice consistently. Audited financial statements for the loan originators are already published on our website, and investors can review that at any time. Of course, we're always open to respond to any kind of questions, and we're open with all the documents, everything that we can publicly provide to our investors. Going forward, I would say that we will also publish regular updates on the platform performance, repayments, and interest payouts, because that's an important part for investors. They love to see the fact that the platform is repaying everything in time and everybody is basically gaining what they deserve to gain because they were an active investor on our platform. We also always actively engage with our community, and always and I'm saying this, always address concerns openly, even
Yeah.
even when questions are uncomfortable. We tend to listen, and we want to listen to our community because they are the most important part of the Lendable platform. So for them, being content is very important to us. Lendable itself, it's not designed to be a profit maximizing standalone business, and that's a different thing about us. Its role basically is to facilitate funding transparently between the investor on one side and the loan originators on the other side. And we don't want to extract value from the complexity of things. We just want to facilitate that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Yeah, that's very clear. And I'm sure people will like that about the transparency aspect of your platform. Now I want to move to one of my favorite questions actually. As you know, there are a lot of platforms just in Europe, right? A lot of peer-to-peer lending platforms you can choose from. So what actually sets your platform apart from all those platforms out there?
Well, it's again a very good question. I love the questions with this kind of approach. So let me think. I would say one major difference here is probably alignment. Is that all originators that we have currently operate under the same group umbrella, which allows us to react quickly and decisively if something changes operationally or financially. The structures comes with a little bit of a concentration risk, and we get that. It's understandable. From one side, it's good. We have a concentration risk but from the other side, we have a very quick reaction if anything happens. Um, Even though I would say, even though we have this concentration risk, which we openly acknowledge, as I said, it also allows us control, more transparency, and really fast decision making. I would say that the difference between us and other platforms is that many of them outsource risk across dozens of unrelated originators, and sometimes it can look a little bit diversified on paper, if you know what I mean, but
Yeah.
becomes opaque in practice. Um, and also, maybe I would say, for the moment, we offer good high yields,
Hmm.
but we believe that the risk is clearer and not higher in our case.
Yep. Okay. That's a good thing to move to the next point, which are actually the yields. So you have high yields, so I want to talk about that. So some people, choose a platform only by the yields. I don't recommend that, of course. But let's talk about this. Like, what interest rates can investor expect on the moment on the platform, and yeah, how to actually balance like those high yields that can, sometimes on some platforms be very high, but how do you actually balance that with like also responsible lending, transparency, and all that we said before?
Yeah, so I would say I would put it in this way so that it's clear for everybody. Current interest rates are, of course, super. We are a young company, a young platform right now for EU. So current interest rates are promotional and aimed at early investors, because we understand that our early investors, are taking the risk to believe in us, and this is our, way of repaying them back. Of course, over time, like all the big platforms, we will adapt to market conditions and capital demand, but still we will have in mind to keep a very good percentage and a high yield, so that our investors, feel good and feel basically the desire to go forward with
Hmm.
us, and in that way we kind of like have a good retention rate of our users and investors. um, Also, here I would say it has to be understood that Moldova has one of the strictest consumer lending frameworks in all Europe.
Okay.
Borrowers are limited to a maximum debt to income
Hmm.
ratio of 40%, and all lending activity must be reported to credit bureaus. So this actually creates a very disciplined environment and prevents excessive borrower leverage. So that, from our perspective, sustainability returns, the fact that we have this um, sustainable returns. This is
Yep.
always better than the short-term spikes where we, of course, give something away too fast and then we can not provide on our promises. So, as I mentioned before, for us, this operational stability, controlling the numbers, and being super transparent is a very important thing.
Yeah, and I completely agree. It's always better to have stability, transparency than crazy yields, even on the long term, and yeah, not being
Yeah.
stable and for sure.
It always can turn around, and and you just
Yes,
think, oh, I invested this super high. I went in and invested in the super high yield, platform, and then in a couple of months there's no return on investment. There's no money or something like that. For us,
definitely.
that was something that we want to be very careful about.
Awesome, awesome. So I actually want to end this interview on another favorite question of mine. So imagine somebody is watching this and is considering peer-to-peer lending in general, hopefully on your platform to start. Um, what would be the advice you would give this person?
Marco, I love this question. I'm a, I'm a small investor myself. I love to, look into a diverse portfolio of investments. Either it's, the ATF space, stock space, bond space, real estate market, or P2P lending market. So I would say first, focus on transparency, which is real data, real audits, real history behind a company or a platform that you invest in. Second, probably diversify responsibly and never invest money you might not you might need short term. If you do an investment and it's for a period of time, you have to take the responsibility in your own hands and kind of like take this decision, in a mature and in a safe way for you, so that you kind of like know what you are getting involved in.
Yeah,
And finally, the thing that I like most is Dior, which means do your own research. And you know, finally, I would say P2P lending is not risk-free, but when approached with realistic expectations and discipline, um, it can be a powerful diversification tool.
yeah,
Definitely.
yeah, definitely. I completely agree with that. Definitely. So yes, thank you so much for answering all this question. I think it really gave people like a good overview of your platform, what you're about, what you stand for, and what they can expect also. I will, of course, put all the links below the video, also on our podcast, so people can find more about your platform, also about the community that you mentioned, right? So yeah, thank you so much again for coming on the show.
Marco, thank you so much for having me today. I hope I was concise and I gave good answers to the questions that you gave me. And honestly, I cannot wait to engage more with your audience. And basically, I encourage everybody within your audience to reach out to us either by my LinkedIn or email address or on our website or on our Telegram group. I would be more than happy to have a conversation and to answer any other questions that may appear to the audience. And thank you again so much, Marco, for having me.